What's cracking, guys? Bruce Matson here, your host show, Metric Scout Fantasy Football. I got some extra time today, so I feel like going over Tyreek Hill in his new home with the Miami Dolphins. What's that look like? What should we expect his Dynasty Fantasy Football value to be over the long term? Jalen Waddle, promising young wide receiver prospect. How does this impact him? And all that stuff. I'm going to go over the numbers, what I think, and all that stuff. Sit back and relax because we're going to cover that right now. First thing we're going to cover is their ADP over time. This can be found at dynastyleaguefootball.com. This just gives us their value now so we can project what's going to happen going forward. If you like this, if you like playing around with values of players and stuff, get a sub at dynastyleaguefootball.com. There you can find my written content, my rankings as well, if that's something you're interested in. But here's their overall ADP. If you notice, as of right now, January, February, March, these guys are being valued pretty much the same or very close to each other. March ADP, Waddle, 13 overall. Tyreek Hill, 8th overall in ADP value. Whether you agree with that or not, that's the market. The market's the market. Waddle, 7. Tyreek Hill, 4 in position. Those are going to change. And why I think that stuff might change is when people are now going to start look at Tyreek Hill in a different light here. He's an older wide receiver going to a new situation. Does your ranking ADP really matter if you're still being productive? No and yes. Trade value-wise, it's going to matter. But if you have that asset there, you're not thinking about dealing him or want to deal him, then you're just going to sit back and enjoy the production. Can he still be productive? We're going to look into that a little bit. A good chance of that. He's got the skill set for that. Jalen Waddle, valued pretty high here. Young wide receiver. Young guy. Young guys who produce early are guys we want in Dynasty. He's still going to be young, and he still has a chance to be productive. So I don't see him dropping off or face planting or anything like that. We could see a drop in value. That's normal. We see that with players. It's not linear. It doesn't always flatline the same. It's more like up and down. That's part of it. He could have a little drop this year, big raise next year, whatever. Does that affect with how we should view him? Probably not. Unless he face plants, which is not really in the cards for him. It's in the cards for everybody, but not really for him. You probably should not be going Chicken Little in the sky over him. Going over Tyreek Hill's production over the years, just so you can get a feel, because we just nominate him as a stud prospect, but as the stats go, this guy's done some things over the years. In 2017, 240 PPR fantasy points. 2018, 328. That's where things went crazy. Back to 2020, 328. And in 2021, 298. So this guy can put up fantasy points like no other. Position finishes. Wide receiver 3. Wide receiver 9. Wide receiver 22 in 2016. Wide receiver 2 in 2020. Wide receiver 6 in 2021. It's hard to get more consistent than that. Going down here, he's given you 21 top 5 weeks, 31 wide receiver 1 performances, and then his wide receiver 2 performances is around 15 games. So he's more likely to give you fantasy relevant numbers than not when you look at these graphs. Wide receiver 3, 15 games, and then 30 wide receiver 4 worse. So really, those oddball games are not likely. Is this fueled because of Mahomes? Is this fueled because of the Chiefs' offense? We're really going to find out this year. We're really going to find that out. But he does have the skill set to really produce due to his after-the-catch ability, his ability to get downfield and get them air yards. Average fantasy points per game, his best year is 2018. Overall, 20.5. 2021, 21.93. He's just been steady. Steady guy with a lot of upside. Best game in 2018 had 32 PPR fantasy points. Best game in 2020, 34. 25 points in 2019. 30 in 2021. He just has uncapped upside. That's the thing that you love about him. Let's go over here. This is over on Rotovis, so we're going to be looking at the receiving metrics more in line with target share and air yards per se. So last year, 1,617 air yards, 10.2 air yards per target, 443 yards after the catch. We're looking right here where I got highlighted. 1,200 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns on 158 targets. His target share was 27, so we are pushing up to that 30 percentile threshold. Catch, we're looking right here where I got highlighted. 1,200 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns on 158 targets. His target share was 27, so we are pushing up to that 30 percentile threshold. Let's look at the Chiefs' passing work in 2020. Just to get a good feel. So in 2020, he had 23% target share, 1,713 air yards, 12.18 air yards per target, 460 yards after the catch per reception. Pretty solid numbers. Targets wise, 134, 1,276 yards. Moving on to 2019, give that a good look here in his numbers. Tyreek Hill here on the bottom, 22% target share. 860 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, 22% target share in 12 games. So what this is telling me, he does not need a 30% target share to be productive. He doesn't need to own that much. 25 to 22 range is where his sweet spot's at. Yards after the catch, he's going to get that for you. Yards after the catch per reception is going to be pretty good. His weighted opportunities are always pretty good. 39% share of the air yards, so what's that telling us is that he's always going to be getting those deep targets, being a key contributor when the ball's in the air, getting those deep passes thrown to him, which allows him to have them boom weeks for us in fantasy. You got to love that. 39% air share. That's in 2019. Let's look at 2019 and 2029 all funneled together here for Tyreek Hill. All 3 years together, 24% target share, which is good, more than good enough. 4,518 air yards, 36% share of the air yards. That's where you want to look at it as a metric. Can he get an air share above 30% in Miami? Is that possible with WAddle and them there? 4,518 air yards. That's what we want. Target share, 24, 25-ish. That's probably where we want. Above 20 for sure. 22-ish we're fine with. So that's where we want his numbers to be at for opportunity. He's getting a lot of opportunity here in Kansas City, as per always. Another thing we want to look at here is the Miami Dolphins offense. Last year, target share perspective, it's really most important to look at this year. More likely because, one, Jalen Waddle's in the picture. Year prior, he wasn't. 2, the year prior to that, it was a big conundrum with Tua and him being in and off the field and all that stuff. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Waddle, 24% target share. Parker, 22% target share. So you know Parker isn't going to get that anymore. That's not happening anymore. That's not in the cards. Mike Gesicki, 19% target share. He'll probably be around there. If anything, Waddle and Hill might open that up for him. We got some news that they want to use Hill in more of a Deebo Samuel role. So that's going to be interesting. See, that might cut down his air yards a little bit. But when we look at the team's air yards, Devontae Parker was leading a team with 33% of the share of the air yards. New coaching, new philosophy, that could change. But I would want Hill getting that share. I would want that. I would want Hill getting that, maybe more Waddle getting that, but 24% for Waddle and 35% for Hill is a dream scenario for them. And don't excuse Gesicki here. 23% share of the air yards is pretty good for a tight end. I feel like he's going to have the opportunity to succeed here in this offense. A lot of people are worried about Tua's arm. I feel like it's more than good enough to get the job done. I feel like we're probably not going to get as much boom for the gusto for Waddle as we do with Mahomes because he's not Mahomes. And this isn't the Mahomes offense. This isn't the Chiefs offense. It's going to be a little different. I feel like Waddle should maintain or just see a slight decrease. I think naturally you're just going to see ebbs and flows with his value. One, he's a young asset, younger assets into the league who produce. You're going to see ebbs and flows. because one, new players coming in the league, older players exceeding expectations, ebbs and flows with production. That's just life. That's just life. But honestly, for a young asset that you're buying today, there's nothing wrong with getting Waddle. A good target share, air yards, yak. I mean, what has he got on yak here? 431 yards after the catch last year. Really solid here. And he got going a little bit slow, middle of the year too, if you remember. So going forward into this year, he's going to be used pretty heavily. Will Fuller's gone. If that doesn't matter. Albert Wilson. We got Cedric Wilson into the offense. Not worried about him at all. I didn't like him at Dallas. Watched almost all his snaps at Dallas. And really, he was just a compiler there. Just a compiler. Nothing special. He'll just be a role player. Jalen Waddle, Hill, Gesicki is going to be your main receiving threats, along with Edmonds, Mostert, and is Gaskin still there? It's just going. That's a loaded running back core of quick guys. And if that gives you the precipice of what this offense is trying to be, it's trying to be fast, quick, and fast-paced. A fast-paced offense is what they're trying to be with this speed. There's no way that they're not trying to be. You got Hill, you got Waddle, and Gesicki's got good athleticism for a tight end. Tua is a good quarterback. He's a developmental quarterback still. He's still in those infancy stages, but he could really take a step forward with a guy like Hill, especially with his ability to get the ball out quickly. I still like him for the short to intermediate part of the passing game. I like how fluid he is. I feel like he can take a step forward into his development. I feel like his dynasty value, though, has probably took a bump up to where if your team, late round quarterbacks don't matter, you might as well want to sell him and pay down for another quarterback or whatever, but that's on to you. I don't see him really blowing up, but he has the potential to exceed expectations here, especially with his team. But going back to his ADP for Jalen Waddle, his long-term value, I imagine it's going to stay somewhat the same. Right now, he's being valued as wide receiver 7. I think that's a good bet. Even if that drops, say March of 2023, it's wide receiver 13 instead of 7. I don't think you lost much, and I don't think that's a big hit on what you paid for. It's not a stock market game because you're getting production, and you got a young wide receiver that you could use for a long time. Tyreek Hill, I think there's a good chance that we could see a drop in his value. One, he's old. He's getting older. He's not a younger wide receiver, and he's a speed guy. Once that speed starts to drop, once he starts to losing a step, that's going to hurt his game a bit, especially when you got Waddle on the opposite side of you. This is very ambiguous for Hill, too. He's leaving an offense in which he's comfortable in, which he's been in forever, and now he's going to a new offense. A lot of times wide receivers goes to a new team, and it just does not go according to plan. I look for him to get a decent target share this year. He should get a large share of the air yards, unless Waddle takes a step up, and Waddle's got speed too. He could eat into those. He could eat into that if Waddle takes a step in his development. Think about this. A young Waddle may not be the same Waddle as next year, year after. He could be just getting better. And if that happens, that's going to eat into Tyreek Hill. I look for Tyreek Hill to drop in value some. It's just a natural concurring of the overall flow of his lifespan here as a Dynasty Fantasy Football asset. He could hold his value a little bit for some time. But one thing, he's very ambiguous. I think mock drafters, Dynasty gamers are going to notice that. I think this change in role and value, this offensive potency, might impact or probably will impact his numbers to some detail to the point where you look at a 28, 29, 30 wide receiver in the future and you're like, well, his numbers are decreasing. This guy here, he's 24. He's giving you 90% of that. I'm going with the younger asset. You're going to have those feels. That's going to cause him to drop a little bit. Is that bad? Maybe. There's a chance that if that speed drops off, that falls off the table. We see that with older guys all the time. Once you get around 28, 29 years old, there's a lot of risks. That's why those older guys become a major discount in Dynasty. They become tremendous values. Can you sell them? That's an interesting point here. What can you sell them for? If I have Tyreek Hill on my team, I'm not giving him away. And what I preach on this channel is to hold the other managers in your league over a barrel. So put him out in offers. I wouldn't even put him on the block because that indicates that you might be trying to sell him at a discount. I would just look at every team in your league, look for what you want, and see if you can get Hill for that. And if you can't, enjoy the production for a little bit, enjoy him, and maybe sell him a little lower if he seems to drop in value a little bit if you don't want him. If you want to keep him, keep him. He does have some promise in his profile, but there is some risk. There is some speculation that he could drop sooner than later due to his age, due to changing situation. This is very ambiguous. Also, Jalen Waddle, he's very safe, at least from a long-term perspective. As long as he doesn't fall on his face this year, I look for him to hold his value. If he drops in value, it's not going to be enough for it to kill you. He could even rise in value a bit if he goes off, but I feel like he's safe. I feel like he's all right. You got a young wide receiver, and we want young wide receivers who are productive. I don't think these two wide receivers are going to kill each other too much. I think Waddle can still be productive with Hill there. I think Waddle has the potential to take a step forward in his development. I think he's a very good wide receiver. I like how he was being used last year. Even though this is a new coaching staff, they may try to do some similar things. But overall, just keep an eye on him. If you want to sell, you can always sell on the high and regain pieces, especially if you're a rebuilding team. Really, Dynasty is an art form. It's very fluid. It's hard for me to say buy, sell, hold, or whatever because there's a lot of different degrees of context. But let me know what you think of these players. You buying, selling, holding. You believe in them. You don't believe in them. I'm kind of there with Waddle. Tyreek Hill, kind of see the horizon coming there. And I'm just not 100% all in there. Again, if you're around that 28 years old to 30 years old spectrum on the timeline and you're a wide receiver, I'm just expecting the fall off to come sooner than later. And then from there, it comes from price. At wide receiver 4 to wide receiver 10 or 12-ish, that's pretty pricey for that. But let me know what you think. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Every subscription matters. It fuels me to keep pumping out this content. Fuels me to keep helping you with your Dynasty fantasy football teams and everything else. Again, I want to thank you, and I'll catch you next time.